A national champion has been crowned. Congratulations to Ohio State. Guess we'll start the show off that way. A bit awkward, but this is a very awkward show since we don't usually, frankly, do not do a show this late in the evening. This is the Four Verticals podcast, by the way, coming to you from a frigid well, I guess not really downtown Jacksonville, but sort of downtown-ish Jacksonville, Florida. No less, we are expecting some winter weather here. I will never, in my wildest dreams, ever expect that here in the state of Florida, but here we are. The area where I live in North Florida, around the Jacksonville area, is under a winter storm watch. How about that? We're going to get some ice and some snow. Should be fun. But no less, we are doing a reaction to the national championship game. Ohio State wins it 34-23. Backdoor cover from Notre Dame. We'll obviously touch on the game here in just a second. But man, just congrats to Ohio State and Ryan Day. They finally did it. He finally did it. Proved all the haters wrong. Like I mentioned on Twitter, I'm sure thousands of journalists, fans alike, haters, trolls are deleting tweets and videos and saying, "Oh, I didn't mean to say what I just said," or "I didn't mean to say what I said a few weeks ago about Ryan Day needs to be fired." I think a lot of folks are deleting those right now. I think they should. If they don't, then the old takes exposed account will come find you because they know. It's like, and they're like the FBI and the IRS. They just know who you are. So if you haven't deleted those tweets or videos yet, better make sure you have. I'm not deleting those because I haven't said anything wrong about Ryan Day at all. Period. Never advocated for him getting fired. I've never advocated for anything to happen to him. If you won or lost this game, my opinions of him were not going to change. But anyway, we'll talk about the game. If you are new here, first of all, welcome in. If you're a Ohio State fan, if you're a depressed Notre Dame fan, feel bad for you guys. But if you're just a college football fan, welcome in. This show is not going anywhere. We've been doing this, by the way, since last July. So by July 2024, now here we are in January 2025. Welcome in. This show is not going anywhere. We still have spring football coming up. I have a bunch of topics to talk about. This show, of course, dives a lot headfirst into college football. Some Marvel, Star Wars news. Of course, we have Captain America: Brave New Worlds coming out here in a few weeks. We'll have a lot of coverage leading up to that somewhat. And we also have spring ball coming up. We have the whole summer. Have a lot of topics planned and maybe some interviews coming up this spring and summer. And then we have games to start up. Already looking ahead. Got some focused teams here towards the end of the quick show here that I am going to kind of dive into a little bit. But if you're new here again, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Listen to this live on YouTube or watching this on the replay, on the playback. Subscribe. Just hit the little button. Helps us out a little bit. Nothing happens unless send you guys emails or text messages or call your phone or show up to your house or where you live. I don't do that. Okay? I respect you guys a lot, my 406 subscribers. So, if you're listening to me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Like the videos too. If you want to even click the little bell icon for the notifications, do that as well. You don't have to, but I don't know, everyone else says it, so I'll say it too. But also follow us on these podcast feed. That's where we started out. If you want to listen to our very, very old shows, go over there as well. And if you want to follow me for my up-to-date, as I fix myself here, if you want to have my up-to-date reactions and things like that, and then go over to Twitter, @4birds_pod on Twitter. Just go over there. So, boilerplate stuff out of the way. Let's actually react and properly congratulate Ryan Day and Ohio State winning the national championships. Before I do that, get some quick water here. Then we'll get started with the show. Actually, before we are going to get started with the show, but I lied a little bit. I'm going to check to make sure the audio is working as per usual. So if you're new here, there's nothing happening here, nothing's going on. Just making sure you guys can actually hear me, because sometimes it may or may not be working. So all right, you guys can hear me. All right, perfect. And of course, YouTube stream is, I guess we are live right now, by the way. So. But we're also recording this as well for the podcast version. And before we do that, just double check. Yes, we are. All right. Ohio State 34, Notre Dame 23. Congrats to Ohio State and Ryan Day. As I have mentioned ad nauseum at the beginning of the show and just a few minutes ago, congratulations to them. I know it is satisfying as a college football fan who, and look, I'm not going to sit here and, at the beginning of the show, I was very, and also on Twitter as well to a certain extent, very, I don't know what's the right word, very aggressive, if you will, about calling out people who were calling out Ryan Day and his, job security. I'll touch on that in a little bit here properly, but I figured I would sort of piggyback a little bit, view it as from 50,000 foot perspective, kind of pump the brakes a little bit, and actually properly congratulate them. This was one of the best stories in terms of a coach going from the hot seat after losing to his rival again, and not making it to Indianapolis again and whatnot, and going into that Tennessee game, just thinking back a little bit and hearing those reports that were real. I'm sure they were real, from guys like, the Cover 3 guys and Josh Pate saying that, look, Ryan Day's job's on the line here. There's some serious job security here. Concerns. Those prove to not be a factor. Ryan Day, as I'm speaking right now, is holding the national championship trophy. Or he was when I left the living room to go record this. But my point is, just what a weird journey has been. Like, going from where they were, losing to Oregon the first time, whatever. Then you lose to Ohio State at home. And a game that I think a lot of folks, including little me, I think were somewhat confident and somewhat reasonably confident, and perfectly so, to assume that Ohio State was going to win that game and against Michigan, and they lost. I'm not going to sit here and, I'm going to sit here and sort of make excuses for that, because it's not. It's pretty embarrassing. But I think what this new 12-team playoff, and I think what a lot of folks are starting to realize, is that this new 12-team playoff is not, and Josh Page brought this up ad nauseum to a certain extent, maybe a little bit too much, but this whole notion of, unlike in college basketball, which is a totally different sport, totally different format, totally different game, like the ball is shaped differently, you score in 2s and 3s and 1s and free throws and whatnot. You get certain teams who make runs. St. Peter's a couple years ago, who was a 15 seed, a couple other 16-over-1 seeds. You're not going to get that in college football. The perfect storybook run, if you will, is going to be the 8th seed, or the 7th seed, or the 10th seed, or the 12th seed. And who those teams are? Well, they're teams like Notre Dame, LSU, Clemson, teams like Alabama in certain years, teams like Ole Miss certain years. Those are the type of teams, these power teams in the Power 4 conferences, the P4, are going to be teams who will be having those sort of runs. Now, look, your Boise State's being allowed in. Look, that's fine with me. Now, you can argue the format. You can argue them getting a first-round bye was unnecessary. Maybe in the whole auto bid system should be totally overhauled or just completely erased from existence. That's up for the higher-ups to discuss. I have my own thoughts on that. I have been pretty vocal about that. Other folks in the industry have been vocal about that. It is what it is. I can't change it. I can advocate for it to change, but I cannot incite that change. I have no power. I'm only just someone holding a microphone and having a computer. I don't have that type of power with me. But just come back to Ryan Day here in Ohio State. Terrific performance. Everything that I think we said on the preview show about Ohio State, starting against dominance, easily the most physical team Notre Dame has seen all year, and I think they definitely show that. And let alone Notre Dame, give them their flowers here, and I will certainly do that here, because on this show and a lot of other shows, I'm talking winner first, talk about the loser after. Notre Dame went on that first drive in the first quarter. It's like, man, they've drained like half the quarter. It was 5:45 when Ohio State got the ball finally in the first quarter, if I recall correctly. But Notre Dame kind of controlled the clock, and they basically their game plan was working for about 10 minutes. It was incredible to watch. They scored a touchdown. Right, Leonard, the guy almost died on the field. I mean, he didn't actually technically die, but he certainly he certainly put on a sub above, if you will, performance. Even though Jersey Mike's is not sponsored of the show, do love their Philly cheesesteaks, by the way. Great, actually. That's coming from someone who has been to Philadelphia and had cheesesteaks from authentic restaurants and sub sandwich shops from there. But anyway, he definitely had a quote unquote sub above performance in the first 10 or so minutes in the game. It was incredible. But I think what you saw and what the rest of America has seen over the past few weeks, if you will, Ohio State was a team I was in takeoff mode. I've been saying it since the since the end against Tennessee. They are a team in takeoff mode. I know a lot of folks are throwing around they're the 2019 LSU vibes. Look, I'm not in those locker rooms. I don't have access to the insider stuff. I wasn't at the game today in Atlanta. I wasn't in the game. I wasn't at the game in Columbus weeks ago. I wasn't at the game against Texas in the Cotton Bowl, nor was I in Pasadena. I was here, so I don't have access to those venues or to those games. So I'm pretty sure a lot of those reporters and industry insiders who were using that term, 2019 LSU sort of vibes, I'm sure they're correct on that, and it turns out to be true. They've won all their way to the national championship. They've covered, for the most part, all the way to the national championship, beating very good quality teams. Tennessee, no slouch. It's a quality team, good coach, good quarterback, contrary to popular belief. Also, Oregon, good program. And, Dan Lanning, a very, very good head coach, and I'm very excited to see how that program is going to look like in the coming years and coming years and seasons too that will follow. Texas for the same thing. Like I mentioned on Tuesday of last week, almost a week from today. I think Steve Sarkisian is the right guy for that job. It's a talented team, not the same level of talent, if you will, offensively as last season's 2024 Texas versus, or 2023 Texas versus 2024, but still a very talented, good team. Ohio State took care of business to a certain extent, though it was a closer game. And same with this one. Ohio State, again, you can look at the stats here. I have them pulled up here. I know you guys can read it and everything, but Will Howard had no turnovers. He looked great. What was it, 17-21? At one point, he was 13 of 13, which was kind of insane. He had a little streak going there, but of course, he has human. It's not college football 25. You're going to throw in incompletions, and he did. Quinshon Judkins, transfer, one of their transfer pieces, had one of his best games in a uniform, an Ohio State uniform. And that's saying something because they have, guys like Trevion Henderson, and then on defense, having guys like, Jack Sawyer and GTT, by the way, guys who have been around for a while, guys who, like the guys on Cover 3 and Josh Pitt have talked about ad nauseum. So that twice already in the show, that must be a record. But those are guys, like, JTT, guys like, it's just a number of guys, like JTT, Jack Sawyer, Emeka Ibuka, the receiver. I don't know why his name's so hard to pronounce, but it is. No offense to him. But like guys like him, Ibuka, JTT, Jack Sawyer, Trevion Henderson, not the quarterback. You can tell it's almost midnight, so I'm a little tired, but the running back for Ohio State, they've been there. They've lost Michigan, not just this year, but years past. They've lost, they're there. Most of those guys were there when they lost to Georgia in that same building when they won the national championship. So they've been through the wars, they've been through the struggles, and I think what this season has been is a combination of sort of like Michigan, a couple years ago. And speaking of their rival, there they were, Josh Pate told the story of, those guys back a couple years ago when they were in the Orange Bowl losing to Georgia. A lot of them were just standing around watching the, red and white, black confetti rain down on Hard Rock Stadium. A lot of those guys from Michigan were there, sitting there, guys who would eventually contribute. This time last year, winning a national championship and whatnot, and Jim Harbaugh hooshing the trophy, and there he goes off to the NFL, back to the NFL. That was sort of like Ohio State. Last year, seeing that confetti raining down on Michigan and Houston, and let alone seeing it raining down on Ohio State, when they are raining down on Georgia when Ohio State lost him in the semifinal. Sort of the same thing. They kind of felt like, at some point, these guys who were contributors were probably standing there on the field in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in 2022, 2023, going to the new year. We're like, we'll be here at some point. We'll be back. And there they were back in that same building playing the national championship against Notre Dame. And I think it's going to go unnoticed because, again, a lot of these new contributors like Jeremiah Smith, a newcomer, Quinshon Judkins, a newcomer, Caleb Downs, a newcomer as well. But I think it's going to get forgotten. Guys like Emeka Ibuka, guys like JTT, who, a couple years ago and whatnot, if I recall correctly, took over the game at Beaver Stadium at Penn State. Famously, I think a lot of folks are going to forget that. I'm not. I remember watching it on the Big Noon Kickoff those many years ago. Feels like now. I'm not going to forget guys like Jack Sawyer either. Even the newcomer who, He won the national championship in his first year and only year, probably Ohio State, and Will Howard had a great season. People kind of overlook him a little bit. Didn't turn the ball over that much. He's a good dual threat guy. By the way, the stat that was going around, and I didn't really think about it until ESPN mentioned it. He is the first quarterback since Cam Newton who won the national championship in his first or only year as a starter as a transfer. I know a lot of folks will get revisionist history and saying, "Oh, Joe Burrow won the Heisman as a transfer, or won the Heisman as a transfer and the national championship." Well, I guess won the national championship as a transfer, but he did it in his second year. Then Will Howard now joins Cam Newton as being the only transfer quarterback as a pure transfer in his first year, winning the national title in his first season, let alone Ohio State's now the first two-loss national champion since LSU in 07, who, by the way, I mentioned on Twitter, played, check notes, Ohio State. Interesting. It's like poetry. It's almost like it rhymes a little bit. Not to mention, too, of course, Ohio State won the first, 14 playoff, the expanded when we first had this tournament, and it's the old format, first championship. Now here they are winning the first one, the newest format, which is not going to last very much longer because they're going to expand it again, probably. We can talk about that on a rainy day, or in this case, a snowy day, and here in Jacksonville in the coming weeks and months to come. But now I go back to Ohio State and Ryan Day, and again, going back to the whole, Ryan Day in the hot seat. Ryan Day can't win the national championship. Ryan Day can't do this, can't do that. Well, he hasn't done it yet. I'm not trying to sound like Josh Pate here. I know if I get accused of being a Josh Pate clone, but I mean, Josh is not wrong here, right? I mean, Ohio State and Ryan Day, this whole narrative and storyline and, innuendos saying, "Oh, you can't do it. He's stupid. He's an idiot." Well, he did do it. So people like Shannon Sharp, I hate to call people out, but people like Shannon Sharp who were, calling out Ryan Day a few weeks ago. I know Shannon's not watching the show, but geez, Shannon, you look pretty dumb now, don't you? Hope you're deleting those videos and deleting those tweets, because hopefully you do, and not just him, but just people like that, folks who are, the NFL types, maybe folks who don't pay attention to college football that much, who were calling out Ryan Day's job after losing to Oregon or losing to Ohio State or losing to Michigan all these years. Hopefully you're deleting those tweets. Hopefully you're deleting your videos. Hopefully you're deleting those live streams. Hopefully you're deleting a whole bunch of stuff. If you haven't, like I mentioned, the Cold Takes Exposed will find you because they're, like Baskin Robbins, they find out. But I guess I'll use this and we'll move on to the Notre Dame side here as a warning to those of you who are calling out these coaches who, the James Franklins of the world, the Steve Sarkisians of the world, and I guess now the Marcus Freemans of the world. Now the whole narrative around Marcus Freeman is, "Oh, you can't win the big one." Just relax a little bit. Calm down. Just because you haven't done something doesn't mean you can't do it. There's cannot versus have not. Ryan Day for a long time, and Kirby Smart, people don't remember this, and I'm sure the same people who are deleting tweets for Kirby Smart, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Kirby Smart, narrative around him was, "Oh, he can't win the big one. He's an idiot. He's stupid. Oh, look at him. He's putting out, Justin Fields on a fake punt." Let alone, a couple years later in the 2020s, he's winning 2 national championships. So what I'm saying is, and, Dabo Swinney, same way, just what I'm trying to say is just be careful when you're burying these guys into thinking, "Oh, James Franklin can't do it. He's an idiot. He's stupid." Or Cesar Sarkisian, "Oh, he's an idiot. He's stupid." Or, whatever head coach, fill in the blank, whoever, Billy Napier, Mike Norvell, Mario Cristobal, number 1, too. And now it's going to be Marcus Freeman, too. Everyone's going to, be saying, "Oh, Marcus Freeman can't do it. Marcus Freeman can't do it. He's an idiot. He's stupid." Just because they haven't done something doesn't mean they can't do it. It's have not versus cannot. It's the old argument Josh Pate always uses, and I agree with him. But I say that, he says it, and then everyone's going to ignore us, and we're just like, "Oh, whatever. You guys don't listen anyway." So, and then, of course, also the name calling and calling people names and everything, calling people stupid and calling people jobs. Like, that obviously helps. That clearly helps. The situation doesn't calm down, doesn't turn down the temperature. And then, of course, the response people will give to me on that when I've said it privately or even on here is, "Oh, it's a job. It's the expectations." I never said that those expectations didn't matter. They do matter. But I think you also have to understand, and I think some folks need to calm down a little bit, is that, again, it's the cannot versus have not. Yes, there's expectations, and that's fine. That's obvious. There's expectations for me doing this show. But I think what a lot of people need to understand is that there is there's expectations. But there's also, again, the cannot versus have not mentality. And that's sort of what, James Franklin, guys like him, Ryan Day, people like him they have not. It's not as easy as you think it is. It's not, it's like Josh Pate's not the flex you think it is. Now my screen's gone out here. Now it's back. But again, it's not. It's just not what it is. It's not. I don't understand why people find it so hard to not figure out this whole cannot versus have not argument. Yes, there's expectations, and that's totally understandable. That's real life. But you also have to understand these guys are human. There's a lot of other things now. The sports change and this new 12-team playoff. It's a lot different. People are still trying to figure this out. We've only been through this for 1 year, so it's like what, people are supposed to figure it out magically? Like you're supposed to win the national championship your first year? Like, again, this whole thing about, when TCU a couple years ago, Sonny Dykes making their run to national championship his first year, that's not normal. Gus Malzahn and Auburn, 2013, that's not normal. That's not things that college football fans should reasonably expect the first-year head coach to do. That's not realistic. It's not. And I think some folks, including me for a long time, felt the same way. I did. I used to think that way. I used to think that these coaches need to win the national championship the first year, and look at Gus Malzahn or look at Sonny Dykes in their first years, winning the national championship. Maybe that's not the right way to do it, because you've seen what happened to Auburn and Gus Malzahn. That there was a lot of turmoil and turbulent times there. Although I think you can look at it wasn't fair, but then again, the expectations crowd will come at you and say, "Well, there's expectations here to win national championships." Okay, is their schedule fair? No, it's not fair. It's not. Anyway, I can go on a whole rant here, but again, it's the whole cannot versus have not. And now Ryan Day has come to he has done it versus cannot. He has done it. For a while, he hadn't done it yet. No, he has. Now he joins the Kirby Smart, Dabo Sweeney, and that whole crowd of the cannot versus have not room, and now he's moved into the have won it. Then, of course, next year they lose to Michigan again, and they'll make it to Indianapolis, and they, don't win the national championship. Of course, he's going to get fired because that's normal, right? Like, winning a national championship a year later, he gets fired for not making it to Indianapolis or losing to Michigan. Because, of course, that's the real world, and that's the way, college football should be handled, right? Win the national championship, Ryan Day, and, oh, sorry, you lose Michigan. Sorry, you get fired again. They're in the hot seat again. It's like, wait, Ryan's probably like, wait, I just won the national championship this year, and then this past season, now you're about to fire me? Of course, that's realistic, and of course, people will use that next year, and I'm sure these people who are actively deleting tweets and actively deleting videos and podcasts who are calling out Ryan Day and calling him stupid and saying you should be, may as well just been sent to Gitmo. But, of course, people who are deleting this now will go back, revert back to that after they lose to Michigan or who they play Texas next year. So they lose to Texas in week 1. Well, fire Ryan Day. Won the national championship. Well, doesn't matter. Whatever. Expectations. I get told that, but lose the game next year. Oh, expectations. Got to fire him. Expectations. Okay, so the first time you get if you're using this analogy with work or school, okay, first time employee, or it doesn't matter. First time employee. Oh, you accidentally do something wrong and it's an accident. What, you're gonna get fired for an accident? Like, okay, all right, whatever. Have your way then. Of course, college football, the NFL, NBA, same thing, right? Coaches in college football don't get fired after week 1 unless there's a big scandal or something, or just bad in general. But whatever. Expectations. So Ryan Day, hey, expectations. Lose in September or August to Texas. Oh, gotta fire him. But Ryan, I won the national championship. 80. Sorry, Ryan, you lost to Texas. Expectations. Sorry. That's fair, right? That's definitely the way the world works. It may work like that in the NBA, but in college football, Shannon Sharp bringing up, Mike Norvell should have gotten fired if they lost to LSU a couple years ago. Like, what the heck is that all about? Like, whatever, Shannon. I like your takes for the NFL, but boy, that whatever. Now I'm just gonna get mad and start calling out people's names, and now I'm gonna get in trouble now for saying, oh, I disagree with people like Shannon Sharp or Stephen A. Smith. Like, I don't care. It's my show. I can kind of say whatever I want. So whatever. Now I just went from being calm to getting mad, but it just does bother me. These NFL types who don't understand how the sport works, but then expectations. So you can. That's fine, Ryan Day. You can lose to Texas next year in the opening week, and you'll get fired for you won the national championship too. That's great. Good job, guys. I love the way the sport's going, or where it's going, but whatever. Now I'm just getting mad now. I didn't even think about getting mad. But I'm need some water here now. We'll talk about Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame because they did lose, and I'm sure everyone now is me talking about Ryan Day the same, or talking about Marcus Freeman the same way they're talking about Ryan Day a couple years ago or even months ago. But okay, now as I have calmed down now, so Notre Dame lost the national championship. They are the loser in this case. Great season for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Great season, a historic season. I mean, you can, of course, everyone's brought this up and may as well bring it up now. The last time you won the national championship was, back when, way before I was out, way before my time, and heck, when they won it, Jim Henson was still alive and the World Trade Center was still around. The kind of morbid examples there, but that's true. That's facts. Those things were around, or that person was around. Jim Henson, one of the greatest TV entertainers of our and anyone's time. Great entertainer. If you don't know who he is, look him up. But the last time, Notre Dame won the national championship, he was still alive, and the World Trade Center was still a thing. There were still, the two buildings were still up. But great season for Marcus Freeman and company. Great season. I mean, you didn't get blown out the last time you were in this position. Yeah, you were in Miami Gardens 10 or so years ago, getting blown out by Alabama. So luckily it wasn't that. Could have been like that. I know, Josh Paycourse tweeted out his infamous, or his, typical, splattering tweet. But great season. I mean, you got your formula for, Notre Dame. Excuse me, Marcus Freeman, a little burp there. I guess the best way I can explain why they lost this game, and I'm sure a lot of Notre Dame fans are upset right now, and you should be upset. But I think you also have to again understand that this is a great season. It's a season you can build on. Yes, that loss to NIU still probably hurts you a little bit because you didn't win. It would have been a great story too if they, losing to a MAC team and then, win the national championship. And great story, and whatnot. But great season for them. Again, losing to NIU, and most years, back in the 14 playoff, you would have, not been put in the national championship hunt. You would have been left out in the 14 playoff. Now, personally for me, and I'm going to make this about, the 12 team versus 14 argument, but in my opinion, a team like Notre Dame being left out in the 14 playoff would have been fine with it. I kind of feel like that 14 model was fine. It still had urgency. A lot of the regular season games didn't have to have the playoff sprinkled all over the place, but whatever. I get told that, and people will say I hate the sport, but I don't hate the sport. But anyway, not to go back to negative town, but it was a great season for Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. Great season again. Riley Leonard, everyone questioning him after the NIU loss, and there they are. Running the football, ball control, playing defense. That formula worked, and it worked all the way to the national championship. And people like me, Josh Pate, Cover 3, I'll admit we were wrong. We were wrong. We kept picking you guys to lose to, Penn State, or, last week or a week before losing to Georgia, a couple weeks ago losing to Georgia. We were wrong. And your formula worked for a long time. You even kind of worked this game a little bit to a certain extent, at least for 10 minutes or so. That long, grueling 10-minute drive, felt like, almost couldn't even, if Marcus Freeman couldn't even scripted it perfectly, which it was scripted because it was their opening drive, and it went on and just lumbering. I think is a word that Tom Fornelli used to use about Clemson's offense, the lumbering and whatnot. But that could have been, that was such a perfect drive for Notre Dame that, it's just amazing. Like, you could have even dreamt it even better. Taking off almost 10 minutes off the clock. Ryan Leonard almost dying on the field. He could have killed himself by running that. Well, not literally killing himself. Let me clarify. Getting himself killed by just running the ball like that. Now he's living, by the way. He's still alive. So just to clarify here, but just could have drawn it up any perfectly. It was a perfect drive. You ran the football, got game control, but then the formula stopped working. Stopped working. Of course, when all good things have to come to an end, and unfortunately for Notre Dame, it did. Ohio State Jim Knowles adjusted. They started getting pressure. The Notre Dame offensive line couldn't handle the pressure coming from guys like JTT and Jack Sawyer and friends just couldn't stop him. And unfortunately, you guys scored a little too late towards the latter half of the fourth quarter a little bit, make it a little bit more closer than it would have been. But again, great season for you guys. I think I still have a little bit of concerns with Marcus Freeman and company. Again, losing to NIU is not great. It doesn't uh, move the needle for me that much. After we lost that game, and I even mentioned it here, I was concerned. But the way you guys both sort of package that energy, have it sort of, I don't know what's the word, I guess like bundled it up. I guess not that. I guess, I guess have it kind of built up a little bit and use as motivation for you, and sort of like what Ohio State did. And both of you guys sort of used losses this year in the regular season as motivation to win. And again, your formula worked. Again, getting turnovers, ball control, again, that first 10-minute or so drive. But then after that, it kind of fell apart. And then you start to realize, oh, this is Notre Dame versus Ohio State. This is the Notre Dame offensive line, which, by the way, has been sort of a patchwork offensive line and with guys going out of injury versus a healthy and a machine like Ohio State team defensively. Now, not Bert Kreischer machine, different type of machine there, but a machine that is very much so sustainable, relentless, and you guys experienced it today or yesterday. Now it's 12:15 in the morning, but again, hats off to Marcus Freeman. Them great season. I'm sure they'll be back. Their schedule, by the way, I think I have it pulled up. Because I know they do play Miami at some point. I think yes, they play them week 1, so you'll be back in that same building against Miami. And if you need a reminder here with Notre Dame, it's at Miami, Texas A&M week 2 at home. So at Arkansas, September 27th, a little preview here, just going through their schedule here. I mean, that's a very hard schedule there. Those are 3 and at Boise State too. So that's besides Purdue, those 4 games here in the first 5 weeks, 4 of those 5 games, that's tough. That's a tough schedule there. And look, I don't care what you guys say about Arkansas, regardless of the guys leaving and whatnot and transfers. That's a tough environment. Go ask Texas the first time they went there in a long time. And but hats off Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Great season. Hate to see it end the way it did. You guys fought your ass off, played really well, used your formula. Just sort of like rinsing your, I don't know what you call it, I guess getting the water out of your towels or whatever, or sort of rinsing out your towels and stuff whenever you do that, or wash rag. And kind of the same thing with Notre Dame and their formula. You get every single ounce of water out of that rag, and it ran out, and you ran into a machine, and that's what happens. So no shame either, too. And again, this game could have been way worse than it would have been. You guys represented yourselves well in this playoff after, or even this season in general, not just the playoff, just the entire season. By the way, you guys looked ever since losing to Northern Illinois. And fortunately, your formula didn't really show up today. You got no turnovers. But what doesn't be lost here, and look, I'll be the first one to say it. Ryan Leonard played probably his best game of his career, and they still lost. The team's leading rusher, 17. Like, majority of those 17 carries came that first drive, by the way. Insane. I think like 8 of those. So been 8 minus 17 is like 6 of those. Only 6 of those carries did not come from that first drive. Had good passing numbers. I mean, you get 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's winning numbers for Notre Dame and company. But this wasn't good enough. It's probably not the best thing when your quarterback is your leading rusher. But hats off to Notre Dame. Good season. Unfortunately, had to end. But you just ran into the machine at Ohio State, and no shame in that. No shame in having a close game towards the end there. No shame in that at all. As I move along here, I got one more little topic here, and then we'll move on to some teams I am curious about heading into the spring. But I guess I guess I could talk about the marketing for this game a little bit as we sort of transition here. I'll probably talk more about it later in the week, I think. We'll see how we'll do in a show if Thursday again. But with this winter storm coming, I don't know about a Thursday show. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. Well, I guess technically, it would be tomorrow about how I feel about it. Because, of course, Jacksonville being placed in a winter storm warning is normal. Of course, that's the normal, right? But I will say this real quickly here before we move on to the other last 2 segments here. because I have to go to bed at some point. The marketing for this game, just energy around it, even before the game started, just awful. Just no marketing. ESPN's marketing, by the way, horrible, horrible job marketing this game. Now, some of it's not their fault, but some of it is their fault. Some of it's not their fault, of course. It's MLK Day, which, by the way, happy MLK Day. Well, I guess, yeah, well, it would have been yesterday. But it was also the presidential inaugurations that didn't help. Everyone's focused on it, including me. So, yes, I didn't totally ignore the new president being sworn in and whatnot. By the way, they have a little message there before the game. So, that's nice of him. Nice of Mr. Trump to pop in there. Obviously, it was pre-recorded, not live. But so, of course, it was inauguration. It was Martin Luther King Day. But it was also, of course, the backdrop of the NFL games this weekend. So, it wasn't all their fault, but it was their fault because the folks chose, a lot of these folks, all these power players, some of them may or may not be at ESPN. Wink, wink. I'm winking on. You guys can't see, but I am winking here. Some of the power players, ESPN and others, among others, not only at ESPN, they agreed to this schedule. They wanted this game to be played on January 20th, on a day that was going to have MLK Day and the presidential inauguration. Oh, and by the way, too, we also have, coming off of a incredible weekend of NFL games too. So that didn't help. Of course, it's right in the middle of the NFL playoff race, but they chose this schedule, and it's going to be this same way too. The national championship game will be in Tampa in a couple years. It'll be on January, January 25th? Right in the middle of playoff races too, and NFL playoff races. So again, this is what they chose. They wanted this. They wanted us to buffer in with the NFL, and of course, ESPN and their college football marketing department. They can only do so much. Yes, they could have done more to market it, but I mean, what are they supposed to do? Like, go against presidential inauguration and NFL playoff reactions? Like, no one's been paying attention to it. Most of the general sports not as cultural sickos were like, oh, there's a national championship game today. Oh, I didn't know that. No, whatever. Or especially all of the, not even just the general sports fans, but just general public in general. Especially if you're in the U.S. Again, you had an inauguration yesterday. I mean, it's like everyone was glued to, MSNBC, Fox News, CBS, or PBS, or C-SPAN because it was the presidential inauguration. Everyone's glued to the TVs in Washington. It's like no one was even. You probably, if you're a college football fan, you're walked into, I don't know, someone's random house. Wouldn't recommend doing that, but some random person's house, if this was ethically appropriate to do this, go to someone's house randomly and say, hey, did you know there was a college football game today? And they were probably like sitting there on the TV watching C-SPAN or PBS or whatever, watching the presidential inauguration. They're probably like, what are you talking about? We're watching the president game being sworn in. Like, most of the general public today didn't even know that there was a game going on today because, again, you had your national championship on the same day as a presidential inauguration, but not to mention you have it on a day where all the sports shows were reacting to the NFL games this weekend, particularly, Bills and Ravens. It's like, it's just a horrible spot. Again, they all agreed to this. They all sign off, and they're like, oh, this is perfectly fine. Not to mention, every 4 years, we'll have to deal with the presidential inauguration, too, so have even more competition with the other major news networks. So it's like, the whole schedule is screwed up, man. I agree with Joel Klatt. Just make the national championship at the very least on New Year's Day, where there's no conflicts. There's no NFL games. There's no having to, I have to put it on Monday. Can't put it on Friday. Can't put it on Saturday because, NFL don't piss them off. It's like, well, you can't even, the model Josh Payton mentions about having, one of the playoff games being the lead in, some of the playoff games, either Saturday or Sunday, probably Saturday preferably, beating lead into the national championship game. It's like, I don't know. Just the whole calendar is screwed up. Hopefully someone will figure it out. Maybe it's Joel Klatt, maybe it's Josh Pitt as commissioner. Who knows? But this schedule's screwed up, man. It didn't have to be like this. But yes, blame ESPN's marketing crew, but also blame the higher ups, the powers that be in college football, the college football, I guess, oligarchy. They signed off on it. Again, they fully approved going up against NFL reactions from the past weekend. Oh, and by the way, every 4 years or so, we have to run up against presidential inauguration because now the schedule's screwed up. Now we have a national championship game on MLK Day, or MLK Day in some cases is both that inauguration day and also reactions to playoff games. That's good job, guys. Again, love the direction the sport's going. That's just great. But a little bit of a developing story here as we sort of move on to the actual topic here. Jim Knowles, by the way, the national championship winning defensive coordinator, has been linked to the OU defensive coordinator job. Um, I'm sure some of you guys didn't realize that because, again, you're distracted with the inauguration and NFL playoff reactions. Right now, you realize that this is a developing story. And yes, this is real. This is not, make believe, message board fodder. This is real here because this, if you haven't realized this, the defensive coordinator who was with Brent Venables and company, he left, either voluntary or was told to leave. I think it was probably more told to leave than voluntary, but whatever. He's at West Virginia now with Rich Rodriguez, who, again, just a reminder, he's back at West Virginia where he should never left, but he's joined Rich Rod's staff at West Virginia. So that position is open, even though the Wikipedia page will tell you, oh, they have co-defensive coordinators listed. That's not the flex you think it is. There's still a technical defensive coordinator that has to be named. And people believe it might be Jim Knowles. Well, why you ask that? Or why is Jim Knowles being brought up here? Well, he's experienced in that state, was at Oklahoma State before. He was there for that famous goal line stand versus Baylor in the Big 12 championship game many years ago. His success rate, very good. Obviously, Brent Venables, again, would know who he is. Probably, I'm pretty sure those guys go back a long ways, I'm pretty sure. But, I mean, Jim Knowles is a good defensive coordinator in general. Even if this doesn't happen, I mean, I'm sure he's going to get attention from a lot of different schools. Like, not just OU, but a lot of different schools. I mean, I can name a whole bunch of schools. I don't have to name just a single one. But, yeah, those OU rumors about him, Jim Knowles going there, that's real, I think. That's definitely some real stuff. Josh Payne mentioned it on next round live. So clearly there is some validity here that even the industry insiders are also bringing it up. It was mentioned on media days too. So yes, Jim Knowles to Oklahoma. It's real. Do I think it's going to happen? I kind of think it's going to happen. Again, just his experience being there. I think Brent Venables in Oklahoma again, and not to mention that. I mean, you're seeing the landscape of changing a lot again. I mean, the rules and stuff, and how many people you can have in your staff. Yeah, why not bring Jim Knowles in? Oklahoma has a lot of money. He can pay up. I mean, hell, or heck, Tom Allen, who is the DC at Penn State, who was literally on a team that made the playoff in the semifinals, he's now the DC at Clemson. It was, I think, and like pretty sure it was introduced this week or last week properly, but yeah, that happens. So this is not the craziest thing, and I think it's going to happen. I think Jim Knowles will be Brent Venables' proper defensive coordinator. Again, yes, Wikipedia has guys listed for the next year's team as co-DCs. You still have to have a proper DC. You can't just have guys who are listed co-DCs. Yes, again, I know Wikipedia says that, but let's just be real. Brent Venables has to. There has to be an actual guy who's going to call defense for him, even though he is a defensive-minded coach too. But yeah, I think that the Jim Knowles stuff, I think that's real. I think him going to OU, I think it's real. I think it probably will happen. Don't be surprised by it, but again, and it's ever-changing landscape of college football. Again, a lot of these new rules, especially with the on-field staff you can have now and whatnot, and kind of looking around, making sure my computer's still plugged in. But yeah, the OU Jim Knowles stuff, that's real. That probably is real, and I would not be surprised if that gets announced properly. Of course, now he's national championship has already occurred and whatnot. So, so yeah, that little developing story there. I'm paying attention to it, but we'll see. Got some teams here to talk about, by the way, in the show here heading in the spring, because of course the show's not going anywhere. So here are some focus teams I'm just curious about heading in the spring. First one, of course, Auburn. Hugh Freeze, a lot of pressure there. Quarterback situation needs to be figured out. Jackson Arnold, we would assume he'll probably be the starter. I would assume so. Their schedule, by the way, if you haven't been looking at these, I would highly suggest you should. Most of us will use Wikipedia. I'm, of course, using that. So their first game's against Baylor, and they're going against their former quarterback in Walker White. So Walker White Memorial Special there incoming, perhaps. And that game again in Waco, Texas. And by the way, Baylor won 8 games last year. Dave Aranda saved his job. So just be careful if you're Auburn. I know I tweeted out, at least I think I did, the Ari Wasserman and Andy Staples of Top 25 with Auburn being ranked 11th. That's no joke. I think them ranking them there is based on this whole, again, Auburn 2025 plan, sort of like Miami, year 3, get it done. They've done well in the portal. Got the Singleton kid from Georgia Tech. Those young receivers from last year, they'll be a year wiser. Again, you would think Jackson Arnold should improve and should be an upgrade over Payne Thorne. So based on recruiting, transfer portal, Auburn being ranked in Andy Staples' top 25 at 11 makes sense to me. I know a lot of folks will cringe at that. A lot of folks will be like, "Oh, that's BS." Well, okay, I'm just telling you the plan for Auburn, which has always been the plan. Bud Elliott's also mentioned it too on Cover 3, is that it's the 2025 has always been the year for Auburn to circle, much like Miami, with year 3 this year to start seeing return on investment. So Auburn focused team, obviously that's a team I'll be focused on. Florida, same thing. Again, they're ranked in their top 20, their top 25 at 9, I believe. From Andy Staples on 3, which was released this morning. Makes sense. Again, both in power ratings and in ranking world, I think that would make sense. I think Florida, with Anthony Richardson being healthy, with the players they'll be adding in, they have been adding in through recruiting, and hopefully maybe in the second portal cycle, they should be a team, if Richardson is healthy, that I think will surprise some people. Not necessarily to win a national championship or anything, but even with a tough schedule, because it's going to be tough. Again, reminder here of the SEC teams, it's the same schedule with their conference schedule, but it's just the venues are changing. So for example, Auburn played A&M at home this year. Was it at home? Yeah, it was at home. They'll have to go to College Station again. Then Bama this year, they played Georgia and Tuscaloosa. They'll go to Athens next year. So again, same schedule, just venues change. So tough schedule for Florida. But again, with Richardson being healthy, I mean, Billy Napier sort of getting a new lease on life. That's a fun team there. It's a fun team, very interesting team, very cautious team, very volatile team. Again, if a lot of different variables here of some of these teams, that could, these tough schedules, and especially with the head coaching situations that are not completely stable, but I think Bill Napier should be fine. Florida State, Mike Norvell, a lot of questions too. Last year was what it was. He made some changes. He's brought in Gus Malzahn. Reminder, Gus Malzahn's no longer at UCF. He resigned, and now here he is in Tallahassee, Florida, which they're about to get some snow. So how about that? But Florida State, another interesting one. Again, they were horrible last year. They were crap last year. No doubt about it. Can this Gus Malzahn hire, and can it make it? Is it going to make it a lot better? I mean, their schedule, by the way, if you haven't checked yet, involves their non-conference here. And the rest of the schedule, I mean, it's at Clemson, Miami, going on the road to Stanford. Not great. The travel there, which is still weird knowing that teams from the state of Florida are going to be playing in California as a conference game. But their first game is against Alabama in Doak Campbell Stadium. So, not to mention here, the renovations for Doak Campbell Stadium haven't finished. So it'll be a proper Doak Campbell Stadium and hopefully a full Doak Campbell Stadium. And hopefully they bring back the war chant and they don't do the stupid piped-in music like they did this year. So hopefully the atmosphere is a lot better. But yes, you open up with Calendar-born Bama, of course. The perfect, I don't know, I guess, it's the perfect, toxicity bowl, if you will, to start off the season. How about that? The toxicity kickoff game. Speaking of Bama, their schedule is tough, dude. Their non-conference is really tough. So they play, it's a pretty tough. So they have an FCS team and they have UL Monroe, whatever. But the non-con other two opponents, it's two P4 teams. It's Florida State, as just mentioned, and Wisconsin. People forget they played them this year in Madison, so they had to play them again. So that's a two P4 teams. It's a little 2-for-1 special there. So how about that? That's going to be tough. That's going to be easy. Again, on the road to start the year in Doak Campbell Stadium. Thankfully, not a stupid neutral site game. And then you have Wisconsin coming to town. Hopefully, a much improved team. That's another team I could have considered here. Wisconsin looking fickle. A very interesting team there. A lot of pressure there. But yeah, killing them more than Bama. Another interesting team, as I'm mentioning here. I mean, I think a lot of folks are a little too harsh on killing this first year. This year's going to be another interesting year, too. I mean, their schedule is tough. Again, Florida State, Wisconsin, you have a G5 in between that. At Georgia. Vanderbilt could be a dangerous team. Missouri could be a dangerous team. Tennessee, at South Carolina, at Williams-Rice Stadium. LSU, Oklahoma, at Auburn. That's a tough schedule there. And also, they have questions at quarterback. Is it Austin Mack? Will they go transfer route? Will be the 5-star kid starting? Probably not, but I'll have questions there for Kalen DeBoer. What staff changes is he making? Is Ryan Grubb going to be on the staff there, which seems inevitable? But some other teams I have listed here, Michigan with Bryce Underwood and some other guys that have gone in recruiting. A year or two under Sharon Moore. That should be a fun team to look to as well. Interesting to see what those practice reports and what those practice reports are sounding like from spring. USC, same thing. It's a new era there with Lincoln Riley. A lot of challenges there, a lot of uncertainty there with him. Penn State, like I mentioned last week, James Franklin's still the right guy. Everything's fine there with him. Interesting to see how the team responds. I think they should be good next year. Dreller's coming back. We'll see what they do at running back. Miami, new quarterback Carson back. The schedule is the schedule. They have Notre Dame early in the year, I believe. Yes, Notre Dame early in the year. So, yes, Notre Dame, like I mentioned earlier, has to go to Coral Gables. Miami gets to host that. And they also have Florida come there, too. So, big early home schedule there for Miami. Well, if there is such a home schedule for them. Bama already mentioned. And then there's this last may shock you a little bit. Texas A&M. What do you think of A&M? Remember them, Marcel Reed and company? They also did a really good job in transfer portal too. Mike Elko and company, winning 9 games or 8 games first year. A big improvement from last year, in the previous year. Again, their schedule looks like this. I think this is actually tentative, I believe. Or actually, no, I don't think it is actually. So this is their actual schedule. So it's 2 G5s at Notre Dame, Auburn and Mississippi State at home. Auburn's at home as well. Florida at home. At Arkansas. Finally, a campus game. That's no longer a jury world. Finally, that should be fun. First time normally in 10 years. It was a campus game in COVID, but in terms of a normal actual football season, first time in over 10 years. Great. At LSU, Missouri, and South Carolina, and then Texas. So it's a tough schedule. But again, they did some good stuff in the portal. They also did some really good stuff in recruiting as well. They've been very good at doing that. Reed's coming back. Second year with Colin Klein at coordinator. That's a fun team. Could be a playoff team. Could be a very dangerous team. But could not. Also, very volatile situation there too. So some focused teams there that I'm curious about for the spring. Teams that I'm just wondering about. Other teams, I could have been a huge list here. Oklahoma can be on this list. Oklahoma State can be on this list. Colorado can be on this list. Illinois can have been on this list. Michigan State, Jonathan Smith and company. It's year or two under him. With him. Virginia Tech, Brent Pry and company. This year, I think me and Josh Pitt, a lot of others were kind of ahead on them a little bit. Where they have schedule. Or were we ahead of schedule of them? Maybe next year is their year. Speaking of Rich Rod earlier, West Virginia and them. Rich Rod, first year, very interested there. Scott Frost and UCF. Weird saying that again, but yeah, that's another team we could have added on here. So it could have been a very exhaustive list. Could have been a very long list, but those are some teams I'm focused on. Of course, some other ones could have mentioned, like Wisconsin. If we're interested to see what they do there, if Luke Fickle, it could be a crucial year for him, maybe. Don't like saying that. Don't have a lot of enjoyment saying that, but it is, like I said earlier, or like I mentioned earlier, again, it's still expectations. And that's it for the show. Our expectation, by the way, is to be continuing the show all throughout the spring and summer. So just because there's no more games being played, doesn't mean we're going anywhere. Still have a lot more things to cover, a lot more topics we can discuss as well. The sport does not sleep at all. It continues going. We'll have pretty soon, or coming soon to a theater near you, spring ball. We'll be starting up soon for some in late February. So keep an eye on that. Can't wait to have those spring games and practice reports coming in. New recruits will be coming in as well. Also diving into a lot of, we just have a lot of content coming. I think I will be starting either later this week, again, depending on what the winter storm does here. Just can't believe I'm actually saying that's a real sense coming out of my mouth. Now, Jacksonville, Florida is going to be getting winter conditions here. So may not be doing the show later this week. We'll see, pending. But certainly next week, weeks to come, we'll have a lot of content. Definitely going to be starting our season predictions or best case, worst case scenarios versus what reality was. So we'll start that up here pretty soon, going for most of those teams I projected back in the summer. And that'll obviously return come May. And we'll get in spring practice stuff. Then we'll get into the season with fall camp. Then, of course, have Marvel news, Star Wars Celebration coming back. Captain America Brave New World, Daredevil board again. A lot of content coming here again. Just because the season's over with college football and the Buccaneers are done, doesn't mean we're done covering that stuff. Now, for Tampa, Liam Cohen is interviewing. For speaking of being in Jacksonville, he'll be here, in-person interview. So, like I mentioned last week, I think we're going to lose him, and unfortunately, we will be losing him. And then, of course, draft time. Gonna be a busy few months for us, and a busy year for us, I think. And also on top of that, potential interviews being lined up as well. So, all that being said, we've been going for almost an hour here. I have to get to bed somehow. Here on the East Coast, it's already midnight. Again, congratulations to Ryan Day and Ohio State. Golf clap, just perfect. Just and in the words of Martin Scorsese, and of honoring the meme here, absolute cinema for Ohio State this year, winning a national championship. Even though just a few weeks ago, Ryan Day was being called out by a whole bunch of people: Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith for getting his job, losing his job, and then here he is winning a national championship. Hopefully, those two individuals and many more are deleting tweets and videos right now as we speak. Not me. Couldn't be us. Degrading and calling people names or calling for people's jobs. We don't do that here. We treat people pretty fairly, and we honor and respect our coaches as well. So, hope you guys stick around for the almost said the contraband word, but hopefully you guys stick around for the spring and summer. We'll still be around. Again, luckily for us, we have other shows like Josh Page Show and Cover 3, and now, of course, College Bowl 25 to actually do what it's meant to do and carry us through until when the new game comes out in the summer. Which, by the way, again, just a reminder, that is coming out. It's really released, but at least from now until when the new game comes out, College Bowl 25 will be doing its proper work. Just because no games going on, let me start over. Just because there's no actual games going on doesn't mean we can't have games being played on our Xbox or PlayStation or whatever you use. There's only two consoles that's on, but whatever. You get the whole gist here. CFP 25 finally going to be doing what it was supposed to do, which is carry us through these coming months. So yes, just because Saturdays aren't actually having real games going on doesn't mean you can't boot up your Xbox and have games going on. So thank God for College Bowl 25 and shows like mine and Josh Payton Cover 3 that carry us through these months where no games are being played. So until the next time we meet up, it may not be this week because, again, Jacksonville, Florida, for some reason, is getting winter storm conditions more than likely, or at least possibility. But if not, I'll see you guys next week. If not next week, this week, we'll see. But until next time we meet up, again, congratulations to Ohio State and Ryan Day and Ohio State fans. I'm sure you guys are having fun times wherever you live in Ohio, state of Ohio, Columbus, Xenia, Cleveland. Have fun tonight. You guys really deserved it. Great win for you guys. It's ironic that they won the first 14 playoff championship, and here they are winning the first 12-team one. So it's like, again, like poetry of rhymes. Until next time we meet up, enjoy your Tuesday. I'll make sure I get this out on the podcast feed at some point Wednesday or Tuesday, which is today, as I'm finishing up. I'm live. Thank you for joining in. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys at some point here in the near future, but show's not going anywhere. We're going full steam ahead into spring practice and spring and summer. Have a good night, everyone.